Welcome to PCM's Webinar Wednesday. We are thrilled to have you with us today for our HPE webinar, Aruba, Mobile First for SMB. Joining us today is David Dunlap. We're going to get right into our main presentation in just a few minutes, but first I have a few housekeeping items. Please enter your questions in the question box on the right-hand side, and I'll relay those to our speaker at the end of the presentation. We do send out a survey at the end of the webinar. Please fill it out and let us know how we did, as well as topics you'd like to see covered on future webinars. You should see that survey in your inbox later today. Speaking of future webinars, please be sure to check out our weekly webinar schedule on our website at www.pcm.com/webinars/archive. We are recording this webinar, which will be available for playback in a few days. Recordings are posted to our webinars page along with our upcoming webinar schedule. There you can also find previous webinar recordings. And with that, we're going to go ahead and get started with our main presentation today, and I'm happy to hand it off to David Dunlap.
Good morning or good afternoon, guys. Good morning or good afternoon, guys. My name is David Dunlap. I'm an engineer for Aruba Networks. Today we're going to talk about mobile first networks and kind of the trends and what we're seeing and what we're dealing with. So to kind of let you know who Aruba is, for some of the people on the phone who may not know, this is the latest Gartner report. It shows us that we're up in the leaders quadrant, far to the right of everybody else, kind of leading. This is kind of the critical capabilities report that just came out from Gartner. It kind of shows us the leader in all the performance, enterprise wired and wireless remote branch and multi-vendor networking kind of environments that you're seeing and what you're dealing with. This is just some of the logos. This is our latest logo sheet that we have. Some of you guys might recognize, all the way from Marriott Hotels, Wynn Resorts, Levi Stadiums, Verizon Wireless, of course the Starbucks, Best Buy, McDonald's now, and a few others that we're having, from hospitals to small enterprise networks that we deal with. So let's get on the conversation and talk about what Gen Mobile is. Gen Mobile is a term that a marketing person came out with about a year ago or so to kind of describe some of the new people who have never seen a Cat5 cable. They've never had the capability to understand what a wired connection was. They're so used to walking around wireless, having tablets, iPhones. If you ask any kid in 10 years old, 12 years old, what's a Cat5 cable, they might look at you kind of funny and say, is that the cable I threw away? I never need it or never use it. They only want to know what the Wi-Fi password is. But we also have to understand Gen Mobile from a different perspective. We have our parents who are at the age now where they're having problems with interaction. And one of the things we notice with Gen Mobile, it's not only our kids, it's also our grandparents, the use of their iPhones, how they like to touch and feel to be able to move things around. So Gen Mobile describes a vast swath of people that are getting used to having a mobile device and working from everywhere and being online, being on touch all the time. So now we're dealing with the perfect storm when we start talking about mobile, BYOD or IoT, and then cloud solutions, and all these different devices from cameras, Google Homes, Amazon Echoes, thermostats, all the different devices that we're seeing in the network world. And we're also understanding that the decisions go beyond just the IT guy. The IT guy is involved in everything now, from light bulbs in big operations to how is real estate being used, how do we marketize this Wi-Fi, how do we engage our customers, how do we make them sit there and say, this is the greatest thing, easiest to get on. One of the experiences you have when you go to Starbucks is how easy is it to get onto their guest network. Or you go to an infrastructure, it's like, hey, what's the Wi-Fi password? Is it written down on the board beside the cash register and open all the time? What's that experience like versus having a great splash page or engaging customers to redirect them to your web page? So we need to understand some of the IT organization's requirements and what we're saying. We've got to be able to scale. That is the one thing. It's no longer one device for one employee. We've got to instant quality experience. We're moving to all Skype for business. We're mobile unified communications. We're doing our business phone calls using the Wi-Fi. We've got to be secure. We've got to understand security and what is it and what are we going to allow it to do. Some of the major hacks that have happened from all the way from Home Depot and Target all happened through a thermostat that was on their HVAC system. That's how the hackers are coming in nowadays. We need to deliver it to remote locations, and then we need to understand how do we improve the experience. Hospitals are looking at app development to add the maps, or how do we develop things. So our traditional approach, what we're used to doing, the separation of our architecture, a guest network was on a separate circuit, they VLAN it out, say, hey, you need a new network, you stand up another VLAN. The problem is we look at it from our approach as being mobile first. It's one access point, one switch, multi-vendor capable, but also understanding when you bring in unified communications into the business world. Skype, for example, is a great example, Skype for Business. That is not one type of traffic. You cannot just QoS or VLAN that traffic. You have to look at it and understand that traffic is very unique in how you handle it and what are you going to do with it. So some of our product portfolio, some of the infrastructure, you've known Aruba for being the controllers and the access points is one of the things we've led the industry with in the last 10, 12 years. We've moved more in understanding that we do that very well, and we do the switches. HPE and Aruba merged together, and one of the things they did was HP switching from the access layer switching line. The ProVision ProCurve switches was brought into the Aruba family and enhanced and improved on. It's why you've probably seen or heard about some model number changes recently from the 2920 to say a 2930, because we're enhancing the product to do more on the access layer. But now we're moving to more software-based understanding of the network to get visibility. Software-defined networking is starting to be a keyword. We're starting to look at analytics. How do we do awareness of where we are? And then how do we get this from the Meridian app development platform, location services, giving different kind of applications. Now we're starting to look at asset tags and how we're able to do that. So once you understand the workforce is going to move, the network operations can't stand still. The network has to constantly adjust. You can't go in and just build a static network anymore, because what's happening today is going to change in 6 months, not 6 years from now. And we have to kind of explain that to customers. So we have to be able to scale up when we start looking at the switch networking for wired access, being able to understand multi-gig. We're moving from a simple switch being 1 gig to now we're dealing with multi-gig, or we call it smart rate ports. Access layer switching that's able to deliver 1.1, 2.5, 5 gig, or 10 gig access layer switching for an access point to be connected to, or a server out on the edge, and understanding that we're able to deploy these access points and these switches with zero touch from partners or customers out to remote locations to keep that drive time, to keep the truck rolls to a minimum. And then how do we get visibility in all that? One of the things I wanted to go back and kind of mention and stuff is Network World had an article recently from Kirti, who is the CTO of Aruba HPE. And one of the things he discussed in that was the access layer is going to drive the core networking, the data center type networking. And most of us in the business look at 20 gig core, even 40 and 80 gig cores extremely fast when you start talking about core switching. Now you have to understand that we're moving to 500 gig to terabyte speeds in the core in probably the next 5, 7 years down the road, just to be able to handle the volume of traffic coming in from IoT devices, access layer switching. So some of the things we deal with that is how do we understand IoT, and you'll hear the term colorless ports, and a lot of people don't have an understanding of what that is. In the old days, we had to disable ports on access layer switching, like in conference rooms or in desks that weren't being used in offices. Now it's the ability that Aruba has established using a product called ClearPass and integrating with other partners is to be able to leave those ports open, but identify what is being plugged into it, not even what, but who, what time of day it is, what building, where is it from, and leaving the ports not blocked, but leaving them as what we call colorless. It's not assigned a role or anything set up on it until we see a device plug into it. Then we authenticate that device. We fingerprint it and we identify, hey, that is going to be an employee. They brought an iPad, or not even an iPad. They brought in a wired Lenovo laptop, HP laptop, whatever you have, and they plugged it in. But we recognize it's not in a company-owned device. We can move them to being in the colorless port to the ability to say, hey, that's an employee's own device. We're going to give them guest access only. We're not going to give them employee access. So one of the other things we do is to be able to scale up and understand what we're able to do from the Wi-Fi access and be able to enhance being a vendor-agnostic platform on Airwave, is to gather some reports to understand what we see and what we're able to deal with the Aruba Instant product line, Aruba controllers for scalable operations, and identify what kind of devices, what network problems are happening. That's using something called Clarity, and that's the ability to see authentication problems, DNS issues. This is available through our cloud platform or an Airwave platform. And being able to understand software controls from end-to-end network health. They understand not only what type of device it is and understand what the experience is from the DNS, DHCP server, but any kind of open APIs that may be triggering, we can trigger alarms, reports to say, we've got an unhealthy device that keeps reporting in, generate a ticket into the system, and then be able to do something about that to give them better access, or to be able to go figure out if it's a service pack or we're having problems with those type of devices to be able to go attack it. So one of our big customers, to understand what we're doing with multi-client, the problem we see at airports is there's too much Wi-Fi. The Starbucks has Wi-Fi, the burrito place has Wi-Fi, the airport has Wi-Fi, American Airlines has Wi-Fi, everybody has Wi-Fi. We're dealing with multi-tenants when we're looking at buildings now that we're offering one access point that the building may own, but each customer of the building, as we distribute the enterprise world, is having a controller in the main data center that controls the Wi-Fi and their needs. And we're able to say, hey, we only need one access point that everybody can connect to, and then we'll tunnel the traffic back. So once you start to unplug the port, voice, video, data, all runs on the same device. When we look at Skype for Business, we look at it and say, hey, is that voice traffic or is that chat traffic? Do we have a lot of people in the office chatting about the free food truck that's out in the courtyard that one of the guys paid for the office today? Or are we sitting looking at it, is that me picking up a phone to make a $5 million phone call with somebody in China to close some business? We have to understand on the fly what kind of traffic this and what it does. We also have to understand that now cellular calls, Verizon, T-Mobile, all the different providers, as soon as they snip the Wi-Fi and that smartphone is on the Wi-Fi, that call goes through your Wi-Fi network and goes out your network connection. Customers need to understand that they're going to have to improve their networks to be able to handle that so it doesn't hit the enterprise networks and then cause issues or problems. So one of the things we do is to be able to talk about unified communications, to be able to enable and handle unified communications. So real quickly, if you look at the screen, the chart on the top right corner shows you the identification of calls that are currently going on in that network. And you can see the comparison client health, how healthy is the device is, versus the call quality. So if we're down in the bottom left, we've got poor calls, poor quality. That's things we can identify. Is it a certain user, a certain device, or a certain area of the building that's having issues? Or is it everybody having issues? We can quickly get an interface to look at it using Aruba Airwave, which is a vendor-agnostic platform that we sell that you're able to stick up on the network and show what's going on. So one of the things we do is we start looking at the applications, be it, is it YouTube for the business or YouTube for Minecraft videos in there? Or is it Box or personal Box? Salesforce versus Skype? Is it Wi-Fi calling? You can look at the differences. We're able to QoS the apps on the fly, make a decision, even in the instant access point, and then make a prioritization of that we're going to move this version of app higher than the other versions. So one of the biggest customers we have, of course, is Microsoft. We're a Skype for Business client ourselves, in our office, we eliminated all our cell phones. So one of the things we're able to do now that we're doing Skype for Business, be it cloud hosted or on-prem, is identify that call quality of traffic and then QoS the traffic to the front of the line. So once you understand those different points, you're going to have BYOD or BYOT or bring the kitchen sink to the office and stuff. Now you've got to understand, how are we going to secure that device, whatever you can think of, from an Apple, Google Home, Amazon Echoes, what light bulbs, thermostats, what do you have on your desk that makes your life better, and how am I going to secure it, identify who it is? So one of the things we do that is we embrace BYOT. We actually love the IoT world, and we do that through a product called ClearPass. And ClearPass is the ability to identify who, what, where, when, and why are you coming on my network. Are you an employee or not, yes or no? Is that a device that we trust? Do we know what kind of devices? We fingerprint it. It's an iPad. Okay, I know who you are. I know it's an iPad. It's 2 o'clock in the morning in a building coming from Ukraine. We don't have an office in Ukraine. We don't trust this iPad because it's not an employee-owned device versus a company-owned device. And we're able to work with our partnership with all the different eco-partners that we deal with. That we do mobile engagement. We're able to say, is that phone jailbroken? Call Mass 360, Ironport, and ask them, say, do you have this device underneath your management, and do you recognize the fingerprint? Is it jailbroken? So we start dealing with all the different things from ArcSight, Splunk, Microsoft, RESTful APIs, and be able to send out this information, integrate with the service desk and services in the cloud from Twilio and everybody else, AirWatch, and identify, is this device an IoT device? Are we going to put it headless? Or are we going to put it on the network? So one of the things we're able to do, Pacific Life is one of our biggest customers also. They're able to onboard all the employee devices and customize devices for bring your own device to work versus a guest versus a business partner. Social sponsored logins is a big thing that we're hearing from customers. And we're able to identify that's a personally owned device by an employee. We're going to give them a little better access than, say, a guest that's coming in the front door. But we need to look at the guest and break them down even further, identify, is that a contractor or just a guest visiting somebody? Are we going to be able to give them access in what we do? So once you start embracing mobile first kind of thought process, there's a big separation in our work life versus family life business, where we look at emails at 9 o'clock at night while we're starting to watch a TV show. We get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and we pick the iPhone up. We go to lunch and we pull our iPad out to be able to answer a work email. The blur has happened from the couch all the way out. So some of the things we're able to do is remote deployments. I can't stress the fact that the enterprise world is not building the Taj Mahals. You're starting to see smaller offices, and these SMB customers starting to embrace Wi-Fi. And they need to understand that it's enterprise Wi-Fi that they really need to have to be able to support the amount of density of customers and the expectations in the restaurant versus my office. It should be the same. The expectation is when I go to a person's house nowadays is you actually say something, that their Wi-Fi is not great. A couple of years ago, you would just be glad to have a Wi-Fi connection. Now you're at the point, even with your good friends, that comment, hey, we really need to do something to fix your Wi-Fi here. It's not really great. From going to a restaurant and saying, what do you mean they don't have Wi-Fi? My 14-year-old son constantly has to ask me, what's the Wi-Fi password? I don't know, son. I don't run the Wi-Fi here. But I'm sure it's either going to be, the waitress probably has the password, or it's probably written down on the chalkboard up at the counter. Is that the right kind of experience from a customer perspective, or you just want them to see a network and be able to connect to it, but securely? Make a social log-on access, or identify something that makes them to agree some kind of terms of service, which nobody ever reads. So some of the things we do is the software controls for branch. We're able to roll out access points using the policy-based management system or identify through the different things, management platforms using, say, Aruba Central, which is a cloud platform to manage Aruba instant access points or Aruba switches. And you're like, well, what does that really mean to me? Imagine if you had a contract to go deploy a large retail location, say Taco Bell, and you would have to go to each location. That doesn't make sense anymore where you're able to say, I have 200 employees, I have 100 employees, I even have 10 employees remotely working throughout the United States. Well, you definitely don't want to have to travel to their house and be able to set it up. It'd be more easier, convenient to be able to say, hey, this is what we're trying to do, and this is what we're going to send you an access point, follow the instructions that are in the box, plug it in, and then we'll just extend the Wi-Fi policies from the office to the house. So your work laptop, your work phone, all that will work there with no issues and no problems. So one of the things is Fidelity wanted to set up the remote access, but they wanted to make sure that they were able to identify that that wasn't an employee putting a personal device on the corporate Wi-Fi and understand, hey, who is that user, what are they putting on the network, and then direct that traffic to the right point. One of the biggest things that we're starting to see is how do we engage with people? How do we engage with the millennials? How do we engage the app world? There's an app for that. What do you mean you don't have that app? We're starting to engage with people on their smartphones to improve their experiences from an indoor location. So one of the things we do is the Meridian platform at Aruba is how do we find directions from point A to point B? Imagine going to a hospital and pulling up in the parking garage. You don't go there that often. Your doctor sent you up there to get a test done for some kind of radiology or whatever, x-ray, and you walk up and you don't even know what parking lot you're in. You walk in the building, you're very lost and confused. It's not a great experience. But imagine if we had sent you the experience where the night before we sent you an email that says, hey, you're registered to be at the hospital tomorrow, fill out this paperwork, and then install this app. We'll recognize you when you walk up to the door, check you in, and just tell you, pop a direction, turn-by-turn direction on your phone, how to walk from point A to point B. And when you get to that sub-department, not the main entrance, we'll go ahead and check you in there, and you won't have to, we'll just come out and get you. We'll know you're here. We'll know what time you made to the appointments. Then we're starting to say, okay, let's engage them and start taking advantage of them using these apps where we're able to engage customers as you walk by something. Levi Stadium in 49er out in San Francisco, one of the things they did is when you walk by the jersey store, they wanted to advertise the sales or promotions they were running to say, hey, 10% off any jersey if you come in and show this. Or retail experiences, marketing departments have large amount of money that they're spending on trying to engage customers. We call it throwing money at the wall and hoping something sticks. You've all heard where's the beef, or that was easy from Staples. They're always looking for that catchphrase or that ad that they're used to seeing and what they're doing. They want to engage directly because somebody already has their app and they're there. They're right there in front of the store in the mall or the retail location or at the stadium, and they want to take it further. So this is how we improve workplace productivity. This is how we're able to do the sensors and understand the platform to engage the building. How do we know what conference rooms are empty, which ones are in use? Where do I get to this conference room? I've walked into so many offices and literally been lost. I know it's on the 10th floor, but you get off the elevator, and everybody who works in the cubes right inside the door have put signs on the cubes. Don't ask me where these conference rooms are. I don't know. That's not a good experience of how to go find a meeting room or how do I engage with my employees. So one of the things we do through the software control for mobile engagement is VenueNext, Robin, all these eco partners we have that have taken the Meridian platform, the solution, using the beacons and the management platform and interacting with their app and developing and adding it. How does a hospital get me from point A to point B? How does a stadium let me order my drink from my seat and then bring it to me? I don't have to go get my beer. I don't have to listen for a beer vendor. I can order what kind of food, beer I want and have it all brought to my seat. And on the back end, all the credit card information can just go through my app. So one of the other things is meeting room automation. If you're dealing with any customers that are dealing with, I have a meeting room that we call them the zombie rooms. Somebody books that same room for the next 5 years on every Monday at 9 o'clock, and every Monday you go by and that room's empty. And you're like, I need a meeting room to meet with somebody for a few minutes. You can actually force the start the meeting, or you can look at the app on the phone and interact with your employees and say, I'd like to use this room. Or if you walk in a room, go ahead and book the room on the fly without having to call somebody at the front desk and get her to book it. And this is the app that we have for Levi Stadium. We worked with VenueNext on it to add it. I will tell you, it's really nice and cool when you're sitting there and you don't want to leave the football game and somebody wants to bring you something to eat or drink to your seat with 2-foot accuracy rate. They were able to, within a year and a half, pay for the entire system by using that enhancement on understanding their customers, to understand this is the Bud Light section, this is the microbrew section, this is how I need to move food around the stadium and understand what's going on. So guys, I left lots of time and lots of room for some questions to discuss, the mobile first or what we're doing as far as an industry is concerned and what we're seeing. I think we should have an open forum discussion. So George, if you have any questions or if anything's in the chat window, we'd be glad to answer them for you guys.
All right. Thank you very much, David. I do have a couple questions for you. The first one is, why is Aruba superior in an SMB from the competition?
Okay. One of the things we do better than anybody else, guys, is the Aruba Instant product line. It's a scalable product that's a web-based interface that's able to interact with a customer. When you buy an access point, you can install it with no support contract, get free firmware and feature upgrades, and you can stick up to 128. So a lot of our customers, Verizon Wireless, Starbucks, Buffalo Wild Wings, all use Aruba Instant access points in their locations to deliver to Wi-Fi, and then make a decision based on what other platforms they're in. We don't force the platforms. If you don't want it, you don't need it. We're not going to sit there and say you have to pay for this or that. It's an upfront cost, and that's what makes us different in the SMB world.
All right, David, thank you. And the next question is, what is Aruba's approach to network management for the SMB?
Okay, we've got two different platforms. We have an on-prem box. It's called Aruba Airwave. It's a permanent license that you pay for once. You buy a support contract to keep improving it and be able to get somebody on a phone call. Or we can actually use the cloud platform called Aruba Central. Central is a subscription-based service that you can pay for. One of the greatest thing is the instant access point is what we use for Central. Is at the end of the subscription, if the customer doesn't renew, it just goes back to an instant access point. There's no date of brick or no day the access point actually dies. You just use the fancy cloud platform to be able to manage it, pull reports, to kind of see what's going on with it. So there's two different platforms we use.
Okay, thank you very much. And also, what type of warranty is offered on Aruba access points?
Okay, guys, biggest thing here, limited lifetime warranty. That means if it does go bad, you can call our TAC, get them to issue an RMA number to you, put it in a box, mail it to us. You'll get one back 12 to 14 business days later. That means you do not have to have a support contract. If you have a support contract on your access points, you can get next business day RMA, advanced RMA. We will ship you one the next business day, and then you can swap it out. Most customers determine they will just buy an extra one or two and swap them out on the fly, and that seems to work best for different customers, whatever scale or whatever you have agreement-wise with your customers.
Sounds great. I appear that's the last question. David, did you have anything else?
No, guys, like I said, guys, I wanted to leave plenty of time here for you guys. If you have some questions or don't understand something or want to ask a question, please type it into the chat window and let us answer it. Be glad to answer it privately. If you want to just say, mark it private, that's fine. Or you can just go in and just type a question. It would be good for the audience.
Nothing really coming in right now, and if people still do have questions, the Amy Clark alias website, we do answer the questions if somebody does send them in after the webinar. So any questions that you may have, we will get them answered somehow.
The biggest things, guys, is the Aruba perspective is we're going to keep it simple for you. We're going to give you a product that works, give it to you at a fair market price, and understand that we're not going to keep coming back to you to say you've got to rip and replace. We try to work with our products and improvement and work with vendor-agnostic platforms, be it the software, Meridian platform, ClearPass, Airwave, whatever you have going on, our cloud solution, and how we all work. Everything is publicly available on the public website, or you can actually go to the Aruba Airheads community, and what you do is you type in Google Aruba Airheads and go in there and look for your questions and your answers. It's one of the greatest support forums that's mostly customer-led and partner-led that you can go in and post questions and get honest opinions from people that understand the product. Our engineering backs it up and checks the answers. Of course, we don't want that kind of form, but just to let you know there's lots of resources out there for you guys.
All right, David, still nothing yet. Your presentation was so good that we didn't have that many questions. So with that,
well, guys, thanks. I wish everybody to, yeah.
No, go ahead, David.
Best of luck, guys, and thanks. Thanks a lot for your time. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you for that great presentation, David, and thank you all for joining us today. Be sure to check out www.pcm.com/webinars for on-demand recordings and for our upcoming webinar schedule. Thanks again for joining us, and we hope to see you again for future webinars. Have a great day.